I'm delighted to welcome you all here to the launch of the 2012 Transparency International National Integrity Systems Addendum Report. I'm delighted also to be joined by a panel of experts on governance. I'm very grateful to the Minister of State at the Department of Public Expenditure Reform and in the Office of Public Works, Mr. Brian Hayes. We're joined by John McGuinness, TD, Chair of the Public Accounts Committee as well, during our panel discussion. I'm particularly grateful for you making the time out of your hectic schedule. Before I introduce the Minister, and without stealing any of Nuala's thunder, I should make some of my own, or share some of my own thoughts on the findings of the report. 3 years ago, when we launched the National Integrity Study, we highlighted the risk posed to the public good by something called legal corruption. Legal corruption is like any other form of corruption, insofar as it involves an abuse of power for the benefit of an individual or group over the public interest. But instead of bribes, political donations, professional connections, and party affiliations are used quite lawfully, but unduly, to influence government decisions. This form of corruption has cost the country dearly. At the last count, €64 billion was owed by Irish citizens to bondholders in Germany, France, and elsewhere. This is largely due to legal corruption that allowed regulation to be shaped by the people that were subject to it, or that meant it wasn't enforced at all. Much of the blame for this can be aimed at individuals. However, weak institutions and laws, in other words, weak integrity systems, also play their part. We have noted that there are too few checks and balances in our parliamentary system, and too little transparency in local and central government. Whistleblowers remain exposed to retaliation by their employers and co-workers because of weak legislation. Lobbyists can still influence public policies with little public scrutiny, and government ministers are allocating public resources to their constituencies without adequately explaining why. It is worth noting that legal corruption is not the only risk posed to the integrity of the state. The Mahon and Oireachtas tribunals have demonstrated the willingness of certain politicians and business people to engage in the most venal criminality that has been witnessed since the foundation of the state. However, it would be a mistake to believe that corruption in local and central government is a thing of the past. In 2011, we launched Western Europe's first free-phone help desk for whistleblowers and people reporting corruption. In the 15 months that it has operated, we've received around 250 calls from workers and members of the public reporting concerns that highlight the potential for further wrongdoing and the urgency to take action against corruption of the criminal kind. Emerging cases also highlight the importance of the media and civil society in exposing corruption, and the need for journalists and commentators to speak up and speak freely on matters of public importance. It is for this reason that the recent threats of legal action made by Denis O'Brien against journalists including Sam Smith and the lead researcher in our 2009 National Integrity Study, Elaine Byrne, should be of concern to anyone who cares about the welfare of our democracy and the protection of the human right to free speech. We therefore call on Mr. Denis O'Brien to use the Press Council rather than his lawyers to air his grievances, no matter how legitimate he believes his concerns are. All this said, I believe there is room for optimism. The government, and particularly Minister Howland, can be credited with leading the reform agenda with proposals aimed at protecting whistleblowers and opening up lobbying to more public scrutiny. We also expect to see an overhaul of ethics legislation over the course of the next year. Minister Hayes has introduced welcome reforms for a public contracting oversight system, while Minister Shatter deserves praise for the ratification of the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, the Criminal Justice Act 2011, and proposals for a new anti-corruption bill. However, it is important to draw attention to where the government has fallen short. And while some delay in introducing reforms may be understandable, there is a risk that the momentum for change would be lost as other political priorities take precedence. As we noted in 2009, the cost of corruption and economic crime to the country and to society is presenting a burden that taxpayers cannot afford to bear. I'm sure the Minister will agree that we don't have time or money to waste with that in mind, I'll ask the Minister to join us and share his thoughts on the government's reform agenda.